Hi everyone, Shannon with OSA here. Thanks so much for joining us. Today we are lucky enough to have Dr. Cynthia Osborne, the Associate Dean of Academic Strategies, here to talk everything curriculum. We also have Dr. Pat Wong, Dr. Don Kettle, and Dr. William Bowden here to talk about the curriculum from the GSC perspective for the various programs. So thanks so much for being here. I'm gonna post an important announcement in chat, and Rachel Sanson with OSA is going to go over the breakout room situation. We're going to be breaking out into breakout rooms in about 20 minutes. So Rachel, take it over.
Hi guys. In about 25 minutes, I'm going to ask all of you to self-select into a breakout room. You'll only be able to do that if you have the most updated version of Zoom. If you don't have that, not to worry. We're asking if you can just put your program title next to your name. If you can see, Laurent has that on his name, if you can see him in the participant list. So that I'll be able to sort of pre-assign you into the breakout room that you're meant to be in. Let me know if you have any issues with that. You can just send me a private chat and I will try and get that communicated over to you.
And if you have any questions or issues, you can chat them as well, as Rachel just said. And at this point, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Osborne. Thank you so much again for being here.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I know that Kate wishes that she were here, and she is driving somewhere and probably going to find a way to listen in just because, you know, she's always here. But I'm glad to be able to meet with you all, and thanks also to several of my faculty colleagues who are here, all the chairs of the graduate studies committees for our three different programs, both MGPS, the MPAP program, and the PhD program, as well as our graduate advisors, who you guys know very well, both MGPS and MPAF. And Chandler might be here. I just don't see him on my screen here. So for the PhD graduate advisor, I'm going to spend the first several minutes talking about our curriculum writ large and some of the changes that we're making, especially with regard to infusing diversity, equity, and inclusion throughout all of our curriculum offerings. And so I'm going to talk a little bit and be able to take some of your broad questions. And the breakout rooms, though, will allow you to go and speak directly with the Graduate Studies Committee chair for your respective program. And they are the person who will be leading a lot of the changes that we're talking about now or helping to implement them. So you'll have the opportunity to speak about anything with regard to the curriculum when you're meeting with them. So that's the way that we were hoping to structure this today. And I just have to say that I have a hard time following the chat and watching faces and looking at my screen. So if there is anything that comes up, if Shannon or someone, if you want to let me know that there are questions that are kind of intermittent, I would be happy to field any. So I wanted to step back just a minute and make sure that all the students understand the structure of curriculum and faculty governance within the university. And UT isn't unique, and LBJ certainly isn't unique within the university about how this is structured. But I think having that broad understanding will allow you to better understand kind of where the decisions are made and why sometimes things take a long time and so forth. So at the end of the day, the person who has complete control over their curriculum is the faculty member. Anyone who is given the authority to teach, especially graduate students, they are also given, they have the academic freedom to teach the students in the way that they think is most is the best way in order to make sure that the learning objectives are met. Now, yes, you can record this, Shannon. There are some checks and balances, if you will, or guideposts that faculty try to follow. And the graduate studies committees, the GSCs is what we call them, every program that is approved within the university has a graduate studies committee that is made up of the tenure and tenure track faculty that teach within that graduate studies committee. The GSCs can allow other folks to be a part of that who also teach in the program, either on a long-term or short-term basis. But it is primarily the tenure and tenure track faculty. We have 3 different programs, so therefore we have 3 different graduate studies committees. We have our MGPS program, our MPAF program, and our PhD program. And faculty are, by default, the way when our school was established 50 years ago, for those of you who are counting, we just hopefully been to our 50th anniversary events. The way that it was established was that any tenured or tenure track faculty that is hired by LBJ is automatically part of the MPAF GSC, and that faculty opt in to be a part of the MGPS or the PhD GSCs. And so whether they're kind of a regular member of those faculty teaching in those areas or not. So that is the structure, and then we elect a chair who calls regular meetings to review issues with regard to course offerings and quality of the curriculum and issues with regard to the curriculum. We also have a core curriculum in which those are your required classes, and the GSC has approved each of those core curricula, and for each class within that core curriculum, we establish learning objectives. And those are, range from broad to narrow, but it's the responsibility of the faculty who teach that course to make sure those learning objectives are met. And so that's where the GSC has authority over anything that faculty teach, really is just in meeting those learning objectives. And we, the GSC, can say, we don't think that this class is meeting those learning objectives, or we think this class does, and therefore, it is part of this core curriculum or what have you. The dean doesn't have any say over the GSCs. No one has say. They are the governing body of the curriculum throughout the university. Each GSC, though, in our school has either recently or is currently undergoing a comprehensive review of its core curriculum. And the MPAF GSC did this a couple of years ago and is implementing it. The GPS program is currently beginning the process of a more comprehensive review. It's done some over the last couple of years, but it's doing one in a much more robust way. And the PhD program is undergoing, just launching a comprehensive review as well. And as part of those comprehensive reviews, we both reassess what it is that students really need to know in order to be competitive in the world beyond the LBJ school, and how our curriculum either does or doesn't currently meet those objectives. So we will reassign, we'll rewrite learning objectives, and we will develop new classes or make it easier for students to be able to take certain classes, or we will do various things that will meet those changing needs. For each of the programs, both in the comprehensive review that was done for the MPAF program and the ones that are ongoing for GPS and PhD, infusing issues of diversity, equity, inclusion, ethics, leadership, understanding the folks that we work with and how we differ in many ways and how that leads to issues of social justice or injustice. These were all topics that are part of and on the table and written into these learning objectives. In empath, they were written in there, and as PhD and GPS think about their curriculum, these are issues that they're going to be considering. And again, in the same way that we would determine all the other, whether our courses are designed to meet any of the learning objectives, we have some of our learning objectives where they, the goal is that they permeate throughout each of the core classes instead of just one or another. So the issue of DEI is one of those in which the idea is that it should be infused in all of our classes in some way. We may have some classes, like in the Impact program, the new policy development class is going to pay extra particular attention to that, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be paying attention to it in our new communications course that's being developed, or in our micro course, or any of the courses that are required. We have other issues that we think should be infused throughout: communication, writing, critical thinking, decision making. These are all skills that we believe are attributes of our graduates that will be so important for your career moving forward, that you need these various skills and perspectives. And so that's what we try to do when we review our curriculum and think about them in those ways. Now, the reality, like I said, 2 years ago, we started this process, or 3 years ago, actually, we started the process. Maybe even 4. Okay, it's been a long time. And universities are cruise ships and not power boats or whatever. I'm sorry for a bad analogy, but they move slowly is what I mean. They're not very nimble. And we have created several changes, and there are many afoot, but like the policy development course will be piloted next fall, hopefully. The communications course is going to be piloted for the first time this coming spring. And these are courses that we spent a lot of time thinking about and are still in the process of developing, but they go through a lot of different steps in order to become a reality. And so as much as there is this commitment and energy behind revising our curriculum, it often takes a lot longer than it should, in my opinion. But in the interim, there have been several things that have been changes that have been made, and there's a lot more that need to be made. But some of them, and you're not going to see this probably in every class, but many of the faculty have been reviewing their syllabi and looking at opportunities to infuse especially issues of diversity, equity, inclusion within it, looking at the readings that are offered or the perspectives that are taught, and to see if they offer a diverse range of both opinions, perspectives, authors, and so forth. Others may have a canon of literature that's really important for their field, and they're supplementing this to bring in more diverse perspectives through outside speakers or in some other sort of way of getting this information in. And each of the GSD chairs has been considering ways and working with their GSCs and we're working with Vicki DeFrancesco Soto, who is our assistant dean for community engagement. I'm sorry, it changes all the time, so I'm not exactly sure what her title is right now, but she is our point person who is helping to develop these learning circles for best practices so that faculty can share with each other the things that are working, the things that they would like to try that are not working so well, ways that they can write statements that will help them to think about their teaching in a different way. And so I, as the Associate Dean, I see the movement of where we've come over the past 15 years on the faculty side. And I also see the frustration, or share the frustration in how far we still need to come, and how for each student who comes in for 2 years can't see that energy because you only get the 2 years where you're here and you don't get that 15 years to see the arc. And so it's not really fair for your experience. You need it now, and waiting isn't an option. But I just want to put that out there to help you to understand both the structure of how decisions are made with regard to curriculum, the process that we have gone through and are undertaking, and will be continuing to pay attention to. But I'm going to stop there and answer any questions that folks may have. I can try to look at my chat too. Let's see. You can either put in the chat or speak out. Either way would be great. Okay.
I'm not seeing any hands.
I've been out this long enough to know that silence does not mean that everyone is fully understanding or in agreement, or that there aren't questions. So I'm going to wait for another minute to make sure.
It looks like John Fossum has a question. Go ahead, John.
Great.
Hi, Dr. Osborne. So my question is, what instigates a GSC review of curriculum, and who, maybe above the GSC, or is it completely within the GSC, that the goals and sort of the vision of what LBJ will become resides?
That's a great question. And it's, I see Ryan also asked a question too, so they're somewhat similar, but it is in the purview of the GSC to determine when they will review their curriculum. And since I've been here, we have done it, we did it right when I was coming in, and then we've done it one other time. So I would say it probably happens every 5 to 10 years that curricula get changed, because as you can see, it takes 5 years for it to change. There isn't any organization above the GSC. So the provost office, the graduate school believed really strongly in faculty governance, and there isn't anyone over a GSC. The direction and the vision of the school is led by the dean and the faculty that rally behind that. And that certainly can influence that sort of leadership can certainly influence the GSCs to take a look at their curriculum. But a dean cannot require a GSC to review their curriculum. And the dean cannot require that any particular classes be taught or taught in a certain way. But they can certainly provide the leadership and the incentives and the energy behind making that happen. So it's not as if the dean doesn't have a vital role in the school in all of these areas, but they don't have any authority over a GSC. It's kind of an interesting, arrangement in that way. But the method of review for curricula is not the same across UT, and that's up to each individual GSC will do that on their own. I can tell you the way that we do it here mostly when we're looking, especially at the core curriculum, is we start by understanding what what the goals are and the purpose of a LBJ degree is. What is the world that you're going to be entering into? What are the skills, the knowledge, the experiences are you going to need in order to be successful and on, really on top there? And we then look internally and we see whether we think that our current offerings are aligned with that or not. We look at what our competitor schools are doing to get a sense of what, whether there's some other innovative things going on, how we're different, how we're similar, whether we can, steal any great ideas from folks or learn from others' struggles. And then it really is going through course by course. If these are the things that we want students to know, and where do they fit? How do we do that? And establishing learning objectives from there. So it's kind of guiding principles down to learning objectives is how we do it here. But that is not necessarily the same across all, and not all the time do you start tabula rasa either. A lot of it is just more of a, I need a little bit something different here, a little bit something different there. So it varies from school to school.
Cynthia, can I just add something quickly? The one thing that maybe you guys don't know is that each program is required to have a review every 7 years for accreditation purposes. Those kind of depend on who accredits each program. So actually that's different for MPATH and MGPS. But UT centrally does mandate that we review each program every 7 years. So there is something that's a little bit centralized, but that is not the same as a curriculum review. That's much more broad-based of like how many people are actually enrolled in this program. Do they all graduate? Do they all get jobs? So it's kind of a broader level overview. But those of you who will join us in the MGPS breakout room later will explain that one of the reasons we're doing the curriculum review right now is because these external reviews are actually quite useful as a starting point, at least. And we just did the first one for the MGPS program ever last year. That's the first time that we had one of these external reviews. So there is a little bit of the centralization up top, but it's not on the level of this curriculum review stuff. So sometimes the word review is used in different ways. So I just wanted to sort of make sure you guys understand that those are two different exercises.
Yeah,
I think
that's really important.
That's an important point, because a couple of years ago, we did have an external review for accreditation and also the State of Texas Coordinating Board review. So those are a different kind of high level review, either dictated by State of Texas policy and statute or the university. But also to Cynthia's point, we went through a very extensive exercise with MPATH starting several years ago. And we had many of us working on committees to ascertain some of what she was speaking of. What are the skills that students need now and into the future, feeding that into curriculum reform that we are now in the process this year and next year implementing an MPATH.
So I will say, John, even though, the truth is that GSCs are the final arbiter of this all. GSCs are faculty members who care a lot about their students, and student voice is something that we listen to. And so it's not true that if students ask for something in year one, that we will be successfully implementing it in that same year, or maybe even year two, right? The process is longer, and that's what I was saying earlier, that kind of frustration where, we take 4 years to, turn this tide, and you guys are only here for a 2-year period. And so that is an inconsistency in which student voice doesn't have as much power as it should or could. But I just don't want you to think that your voice in asking and for what will make your experience better is not something that we take that very seriously. And it leads to changes, but the changes take longer than what oftentimes students will be able to see, which is the frustrating piece. But I do think that there are changes afoot that are, you may not see it in each of your classes, but I know just in working with lots of faculty that there is, that they are making incremental sometimes large, sometimes small changes, especially with regard to DE&I. And we need to do more. I'm not suggesting that we don't. Let's see. Someone's sharing their screen, I believe. I think Maria Elena is, there we go. Okay, but someone else just raised their hand. As of now, will the methods, goals of these sort of reviews be affected by the recent executive order? I don't, I do not think so. The federal, my understanding is that the executive order, one, doesn't have any teeth, but two, doesn't affect like our curriculum development. I've never heard anyone think, I haven't heard anyone think about that as changing what we're doing here. So I will look into that to make sure that that isn't something that UT has been thinking about and considering for federal aid, but I thought this was more in federal employee, federal agencies, that they're not allowed to talk about issues with regard to diversity and equity and training, but I don't think that it is actually applied to the issue, higher ed. Azim? I can't hear you. Sorry.
You said you can?
I can't hear you.
What about that?
Better, but not great. I'm listening.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. First, I guess, thank you for the delicacy and poise in which you approached, like, obviously a super delicate and emotionally charged topic. What a lot of students have expressed to me, impact meetings and stuff like that, is that obviously, you know, professors have academic freedom. They have the last say on everything that they choose to present in their class and whatnot. But are there any opportunities during the curriculum review process for student collaboration or feedback? Because as it stands now, I think certain students feel like it goes on behind closed doors and then we get a final product at the end, which in my mind may lead to more headaches at the end than if a student said something in the middle.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I appreciate that question. And my understanding is that both in the PhD and the GPS reviews will be incorporating student voice in those as they consider what we need to learn, what we want to learn. The empath did, but none of you were here when that happened. So you don't think your voices were incorporated, right? But we surveyed and talked to lots of students and alumni and so forth. And that was central to a lot of the decisions that we were making. And so it's that timing sometimes that's so frustrating that that you think it's going on behind closed doors, but we've been working the whole time. It's just, you know, and we did include students, and then the students change faster than we get our act. Well, I won't say get our act together, but before we make the changes that need to really occur. I'm not suggesting that we can't do better, but I know that the PhD and the MGPS programs are going to be very open to listening to what students are wanting. That doesn't mean at the end of the day that it's going to, you know, be everything that they can do, but it will certainly be, and you should talk to your individual GSC chair about that, but certainly be incorporated. I feel like I'm taking up more of the time that you need to be able to use to talk with your GSC chairs, because I think we only go until 2, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And, you know, I see a question, and you should discuss that question in the empath. So there is the new policy development course is under development, and hopefully it is going to be piloted if I have to teach it myself next fall. And that, of course, really is about policy development, but also infusing issues of social justice and more square on. Okay, so I think that you guys are going to fly off into different rooms. I am available at any time as the Associate Dean. It's my role to make sure the curriculum is happening. And I'm open to any questions or concerns or feedback that you have. You obviously have your graduate advisors and all of OSA and Kate. So please continue to reach out to us and use us as you should.